What are you doing in these rooms, ladies and gentlemen? More visitors. There is never a moment of peace in my home. Ah, yes, this is my home. Or better, it was my home. I am Gabriella Caterina Mesmer di Marol, maid of honour to Her Royal Duchess Maria Giovanna, first Countess of Salles and later of Osasio, mistress of Duke Carlo Emanuele II of Savoy. But everyone knew me as the lady of the Palazzo. I lived in these rooms for 57 years when I was alive, and for nearly 300 years since. But if you want to know the history of this residence, I could be your guide. Follow me. Welcome to Palazzo Lascaris. Welcome to my humble home. To tell the truth, the building was built by the Counts Beggiami di Sant'Albano, who owned this piece of land called the Santa Francesca neighbourhood. At that time, as a capital city, Turin was expanding. These were the outskirts of the city, near the citadel. Time has passed, but this atrium is the same. The same wooden flooring, the same columns, the same statues. I had them put in. Certainly in my day there were carriages. Today strange noisy vehicles come in. But the atmosphere under these vaults is more or less the same. The courtyard has changed. In my day there was a French-style garden all the way to the fortress. These two wings of the building were added later, and these cobblestones were put in the early 1900s. But let's do things in proper order. Follow me upstairs. The Beggiami di Sant'Albano were two brothers, Giovanni and Michele. The latter was the Bishop of Turin. He married me to my first husband, Carlo delle Lanze. A marriage designed to save face to cover my affair with the Duke Charles Emmanuel, but we'd better skip that. The Beggiami had the palace built by the great entrepreneur Domenico Bernardi, who had worked for the vineyard of Madama Reale. The palazzo was built between 1663 and 1665, and the Beggiami lived here for 9 years. In 1672, it was taken over by my husband and I. At that time, the building was known as Palazzo delle Lanze, after my first husband. When I was widowed, I married Giacinto Scaglia, the Lord of Osasio, and it became Palazzo Osasio. Not very imaginative, but we'd better skip that. When I arrived here, the building was already worthy of a nobleman, but I wanted to give it that personal touch. And so I had my apartments decorated. Lovely, aren't they? The frescoes here represent the deeds of Samson, while in the next room I had the allegories painted. For years the paintings were hidden by a false ceiling, and it wasn't until 1975 that some workers chanced upon them, bringing them back to light. The stucco works and decorations were restored, and I must say they did a superb job. It's like being back in my day. Ah, those were great times. There was so much life in these rooms. But certainly the room with the greatest life was this one, the ballroom. Imagine the feasts, the lights, the gowns. Today it is a reception hall. There is certainly a sense of continuity. Still today, this is where the regional council receives international visitors. And after the party, some rest. From this belvedere, it was a thrill to watch the sunset, hear the carriages passing, enjoy the quiet of the palazzo. Although there weren't many calm moments. Indeed, the palazzo was damaged several times, and not just during the Second World War. Just think, on August the 20th, 1698, just before dawn, we were woken by a powerful explosion. A bolt of lightning had hit the gunpowder stores in the fortress, and both this building and the ones next door were seriously damaged. Then there was the siege of 1706. Here we were under cannon fire. The French were down there, just beyond the city walls. Yet, despite everything, I dearly loved this building. So much that in 1720, when I had to sell it, I added a clause enabling me to live the rest of my days in my apartments. And thus, for 9 years, until February the 22nd, 1729, I shared the building with my successor, the Marquis Giuseppe Gaetano Caron di San Tommaso, whose family held this palazzo for about 120 years. You see the stalk over there? It indicates that this room was originally designed as the master bedroom, the stalk being a fertility symbol. And yet the Caron didn't like this room and had new quarters built. By then, I had passed on to a better life, and yet I continued to keep a watchful eye on the comings and goings of the palazzo, so I watched as it changed under the Caron. The right wing with the bedrooms and new stables was added, designed by Bernardo Vittone. A new store was built for the gardening tools. At the same time, society was changing too. The French Revolution echoed round us. Things were not going well for the aristocracy. The Marquis's nephew, Giuseppe Bonaventura, rented parts of the building to aristocratic and bourgeois families. Artisans set up shop on the ground floor. There was a cafe, a family of carriage gilders, a painter. 127 people lived in the palazzo. The last descendant of the Caron family was Cristina Giuseppina. In 1803, at the age of 17, she married Count Agostino Lascaris, and voila, the palazzo took on its current name. Indeed, it is quite a paradox that its name comes from the owner who lived here the least. Giuseppina Caron and Agostino Lascaris did not get along well. One lived here in Piedmont, the other in Tuscany, for health reasons they say, but we'd better skip that. This situation did, however, affect the history of the palazzo. In 1835, taking advantage of his wife's absence, Agostino Lascaris hosted here the Chamber of Commerce and Agriculture, the first of a long succession of designations, as this building was used for public offices and institutions. Do you know him? Well, now, do you really think that the history of Palazzo Lascaris, so interwoven with that of Turin and the Piedmont region, could possibly be complete without Camillo Benso, Count of Cavour? In fact, in 1826, the only daughter of Agostino Lascaris and Giuseppina Caron, Adele, married Gustavo Benso di Cavour, brother of the more famous Camillo. When the last Caron di San Tommaso passed away, the palazzo became the property of the Benso family. This room, once the bedroom of the Caron di San Tommaso, was for many years the office of Camillo Benso. Whereas this is where he held his more confidential meetings, politicians, businessmen, and it seems even some more informal meetings. In 1871, the palazzo was first dismembered, part of the garden sold off, and later the building itself was sold to the Silk and Loan Society. From aristocratic home to office building, the palazzo continued changing. The interiors have been adapted to new uses. On the outside, 2 loggias and the portico around the courtyard were added. The courtyard itself was closed in by a wall. Among other things, on July the 11th, 1899, the first meeting of the Board of Directors of Fiat was held in Palazzo Lascaris. Indeed, that seems to be the cause of that invasion of noisy carriages I mentioned before. Palazzo Lascaris was seriously damaged during the bombing that took place on July the 13th, 1943. Many of the rooms collapsed and the building caught fire. In 1948, the Chamber of Commerce purchased Palazzo Lascaris and renovations began, giving the palazzo more or less its current look. I didn't know where to hide while all the work was going on. Everything was upside down and disjointed. Furniture, ceilings, decorations. And so we come to current history. In 1975, the Regional Council of Piedmont purchased Palazzo Lascaris as its headquarters. Under the courtyard, they built the council hall, the palazzo's new beating heart. This is where the Regional Council meets. No longer are we in the age of feasts and balls. Today, Palazzo Lascaris is the place where the regional laws governing life here in Piedmont are written. And so we have reached the end of our tour of Palazzo Lascaris. History continues to pass through these walls. Once they were kings, dukes and noblemen. Today they are presidents, councilmen and citizens. And tomorrow? Who knows? But they will always find me here to accompany them. Well, I must leave you now, but let me once again say, welcome to Palazzo Lascaris.